Nazarene University, and it was raining and the wind was blowing really hard. And Dad was, he's 88. He was trying to walk up this hill, and over time he got kind of arthritis in his knee or something. And the way he was limping up the hill, we were just laughing so hard because it was.
Aw, Grandpa.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Is it on?
It is. So, remember, it's just us at the breakfast table.
Yeah. What do you want to talk about?
Well, today we're going to talk about boredom. Well, so.
Okay.
So, like, not natural.
Right. Hi. I'm not looking at the camera. We're going to talk about boredom today. Like, what is this? Sesame Street?
I know.
No.
Mr. Rogers.
Well, we were going to talk about boredom. We were talking about different topics, which is usually the way it happens in this family. It's just stuff pops up. But Jordan brought up the idea of boredom.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something he had read about, maybe there's some benefits to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so it took us on all sorts of little rabbit holes with our perspective of boredom, and something that made, when I first thought of it, it reminded me of being a kid, and something I remember you always saying, anytime we were complaining or we had to go to some function and we were like, oh, Dad, it's going to be boring, it's going to be lame, whatever, you always said boredom is a choice. And as a 8-year-old, you're like, whatever,
Giving you a lecture on it.
Yeah, but that, I feel like that stuck with me over the years, and it's something that I feel like when I reflect and I look at my life, like, I don't feel like I'm ever bored. I might get like restless, and maybe that is a form of boredom. I don't know, but I don't see boredom as something that's.
What is it? What do you think boredom is? Pull out your trusty AI. What is boredom? Maybe the way we define boredom is not accurate.
Mm-hmm.
When you were 8 and you were saying I'm bored, it wasn't that there wasn't anything to do. It just wasn't fun necessarily. We looked at it as not fun.
Yeah, or like you weren't willing to like press in to the situation. Like, to me, I feel like boredom is a lack of presence, maybe. Like, when you're looking at it in a negative way, because we're going to talk too today about how boredom is a positive thing, but our society, our culture sees boredom as this horrible, state of being.
Well, just walk down the street right now. Boredom to me implies nothing to do, nothing to, like, I'm bored. It means that there's nothing to do that interests me. But yet when you look around at our culture right now, we fill up our boredom with clicks and swipes and
scrolls and
all that stuff. We are so not. Boredom to me kind of is wrongly, probably. I've defined it as being unengaged.
Mm-hmm.
But that's such a negative way to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think when we choose to be bored and we're letting that boredom affect us in a negative way, I feel like what we're saying to ourselves is like, I don't have the discipline or the determination or the skills
or the desire
or whatever, the desire to sit with myself and like enjoy life. I mean,
we've talked about being so much.
Yeah. But as a kid, like, let's just go there. I mean, think about your childhood. I mean, do you remember dealing with boredom, or like what did you do to pass time, or how did you, go about your days?
Well, I grew up in the 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So it was 20, 30 years before cell phones.
Right.
which is really weird to even think about that. But I remember we were talking about it this morning. You remember, if you can think back, even your age, but can you think back to the last day of school? And some people would have hated that it was the last day of school. I was not one of those people.
Yeah.
I always looked forward to the end of school in, what was it, May, in the middle of May.
June, wherever, depending on where you're located.
And then, but what I remembered is the day after, the next day, of getting up and just no pressure to have to get up and get ready to go to school like a job, it was your job. But the next day, sitting out on the front porch of our little house in Norman, Oklahoma, and it being kind of springy, summery weather, the sun shining and the breeze is going a little bit, and just sitting there and not having anything to do.
Yeah.
Such a great feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
no impending doom of school, and just
right.
like the day is yours and you can do whatever it is you want to do.
And our parents,
what would y'all do?
Well, our parents didn't. It's weird as I think about it, because they didn't require us to go out and, of course, you wouldn't when you were 8, but when you're 12, 13, 14, your teenage years, our parents didn't really require us to get jobs. Mm-hmm. So we, in the summertime, where you think some kid, parents might have you get a job or whatever, we didn't. So there weren't any expectations. I don't know if that's good or bad. It's just, okay, it's summer. We seriously spent 8-10 hours a day outside.
Mm-hmm. Same. I'm so grateful for that childhood. Being in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I lived on a cul-de-sac. Had like 15
Rose
acres.
Lane.
Yeah, Rose Lane. Shout out to Rose Lane, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. What was our zip code? 15234.
Something. Yeah. I forgot that. Yeah.
And I remember our phone number, 412-563-0164.
I didn't remember that either.
But yeah, us too, we were outside all the time. I mean,
yeah, we had that, like you said, that 15 acres of woods behind us. And
we had kids all in the neighborhood and on our street. And it was just like, as soon as breakfast was over, we were rushing out the door, and y'all have to, we'd listen for your whistle.
Yeah.
We'd whistle, or it was either that or street lights. When the street lights came on, we had to come home.
Right. Yeah.
And, no phones, just roaming around the neighborhood, going to the park.
Mm-hmm.
We had we'd built tree forts. We had, and when it was snow days, it was just like full on.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's very hilly, so there was a lot of terrain to play in. And
I remember one of our neighborhood kids had, or one of our neighborhood friends had, a lawnmower motor, and we somehow jerry-rigged it to a red wagon, like a radio flyer. And
I don't even remember that.
And we made a little go-kart.
Yeah.
We played hockey, and just played hockey nonstop, or rollerblade, or had lemonade stands. Like, that was like the big deal of the day. Was like, okay, I remember having to ride home to refill the lemonade and going back down the street. But yeah, it's just like we were constantly outside.
Yeah, same. We lived in Norman. We lived next to we had a big lot, because of the parsonage where the pastor, my dad was the pastor, lived on. It was a big lot, probably an acre, but next to us there was a 3-acre cornfield. It's weird in Norman, in town, and somebody would plant corn in there, but we would build forts out there, dig them into the ground. We'd have dirt clod fights. We had a tree house. Dad built us a kind of a basic tree house. But you remember Matchboxes, Matchbox cars. Well, they came out when we were kids, and we built entire cities outside in the yard. Yeah, and we just there was a lot going on. Then as we got older in teenage years, we were still outside.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah. Yeah, it's just it's weird how just in your lifetime, and then you look at mine, where there's a 30-year difference or whatever, but still my generation got to taste that for the most part, being outside and pre-cell phone, and I'm so grateful. I feel like that's where I've always felt like our generation has a special place and role in terms of being a bridge.
Yeah, because after you, they're all tech natives.
Yeah.
Born into it. I think I was just thinking even as a kid, because even when we lived in Alaska, and all the obstacles and even dangers of living in the wild like that, where we did in rural Fairbanks.
Mm-hmm.
It's Alaska and it's rural. I mean, we lived outside of town. There was a lot of space to think. I mean, some of my earliest thoughts were about the cosmos, and you'd see things like the northern lights and big sky and stars and clouds. And I remember even as a young kid just laying on my back in the field next to the house, just contemplating like God and how did we get here, which is kind of strange for a 6-year-old, I guess, maybe not, but we didn't have the diversion and the distraction that you guys have and had, and especially kids now.
Yeah. I mean, we were just on the cusp of instant messenger and internet. We had Netscape. I remember Netscape and Napster and all that stuff. Yeah, all that stuff coming in, and I remember like that shift of getting in on that, but it still like wasn't as strong of a pull as it is today. It
was like an option.
Yeah, and it was like I think too. It's like when you're a kid, and maybe this is a generational thing. I don't know. We can explore it, but like this idea that we need to be entertained, like because of where we've gone in technology. It's like kids, I feel like today it's harder, like unless you're really, as a parent, really conscious about it's not your job to entertain your kids, and letting them be bored and letting them figure stuff out. Like we would in our basements, on rainy days or whatever, we might watch a movie, but oftentimes we were building forts or making up games or making up home video, filming home videos and having weird, funny stories.
Yeah, I mean, traveling back then, you usually took things to draw with, things to, you didn't have videos in your car. I even remember when, we'd go down to Florida and visit Linda and Collie, Lori's sister. The advent and the introduction of video movies in the car while you drove.
I don't think we had that.
They did, though.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
yeah,
they had those. So what were those vans that had the
big van,
consoles,
step van with the screens that popped down, and so that now the space, it really was like a babysitter.
Yeah.
It kept the kids occupied and quiet. Right. Which maybe that sounds, it's peaceful for the parent, but then it took away something about that whole looking out the window and thinking,
Oh, we would come up with, crazy games, or we'd write signs to people as they, as people drove by us, and would honk if whatever, we just would be silly like that, and
things that would get you killed now.
Right.
Road rage.
I remember Haley and I being grounded, and so we just were sent to our rooms because her and I had been fighting, and we had to be up there for like 3 hours, and we were so bored, and we came out, we were like, what can we do? So we went through the bathroom closet, and we started making like a potion of some sort, but it ended up being like a really awesome, it was like a lotion, and it smelled really good, and we just like put all this stuff together, and it like looked really pretty on your skin. And her and I like talked about if we could get it,
market it.
Yeah, market it, and we like just had invented something.
Yeah.
Like think about inventors, like.
Well, we were talking
creatives.
about that this morning. Is if who was it that invented the light bulb?
Edison?
Yeah, Thomas Edison. If he had had a smartphone and AI, maybe we wouldn't even have light bulbs, because he failed at it 1,000 times. But he sat around and thought about it and tried stuff. And I think we're not knocking technology. I have emails. I have a smartphone. I'm trying to decide if I still want a smartphone, because I'm trying to simplify my life. But those things are not bad. We're not saying that it's bad. It's one of the things that was said when all that was coming in. I read this in Sacred Rhythms. It wasn't Ruth Haley Barton that invented it, but she was saying something about, I just lost my train of thought.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Well, so we're kind of looking at boredom though, in a
positive way.
Yeah, like I don't really ever use that word to describe my state of being, because I just don't feel like I'm bored. Like, but what I have noticed now, and where we're practicing these sacred rhythms and we're practicing stillness and solitude and all that
present,
stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, for me, the big thing is like my connection with this, and so lately I've been trying to, when I go outside, to just like have my downtime is like not bring this, and instead pick up my ukulele.
Yeah.
But if I don't have that ukulele ready to go, as accessible as my phone, then oftentimes I'll go to the phone. So I have to make it easy for myself, or picking up my sketch pad and my pencils, like putting that in a space where I can grab that.
Yeah,
to that,
having different resources. Well, me, I'm an AI nut. I like the convenience of AI. It's like having a slow down. From what you're saying, I went to AI, which is one of my favorite go-tos. I like the idea of it looking for stuff that I don't have to stop and look for. Maybe that's part of the boredom process, is actually doing the research, but AI makes it convenient. Anyway, I looked up, I wanted to look at boredom from a positive, constructive perspective. So instead of saying I'm bored, what would be some alternatives to that? Or maybe, as I'm saying this, is maybe it's okay to say I'm bored. What is that going to allow me to be and do?
Yeah, not looking at it as like a detriment, but
alternatives can be sparks. Sparks for creativity. It's an opportunity to reflect, to explore. Something that I read about boredom is that it can boost problem-solving skill.
Yeah, I mean, I think of that. I think of like old work meetings when you're in a think tank and y'all are present. Like there is such a present piece to all of that, to be able to sit there and just, okay, how are we going to solve this problem, and let ourselves like sit in the mess or in the the challenge at hand, and then how are we going to solve it? And it's so fun to like bounce ideas off with people.
Yeah, comedy writing teams for like Johnny Carson and Jay Leno and other talk show hosts. Those writers sit in a room and just riff off of each other, bounce it around. They don't, they're just talking. But one thing I found while I was looking at alternatives.
You're touching your mic.
Alternatives is that learning to cope with boredom can help build mental resilience and patience, which we all know. Everybody, and it's a thing now. It's a primary thing in our cultural discussions is mental health.
Yeah.
And maybe the fact that we don't unplug and breathe and just be present is part of the mental health issue.
Yeah. Well, my friend just the other day brought up this, and it's fascinating to think about, but like the emotional connection and bond that our brains and bodies have with this device, like it's kind of creepy. Like it's like, I know for me, when I'm going through like a tough situation and I'm able to be present and mindful of how I'm reacting to that or responding to that situation, like I can catch myself grabbing this, whereas maybe I would have grabbed in the past, alcohol, drugs. I smoked a lot of weed. I drank all the time.
Pornography.
Yeah, I never really struggled with that, but yeah, but just the hookup culture. I was so in that. So if I was dealing with something, I often gravitated to those things. So now that I'm not doing that and I'm sober and I'm celibate, I still find myself grabbing this, and it's like, okay, I don't want to be emotionally connected to this. Like, it's an inanimate object, and how do we like find discipline and balance, and like, yes, we can use technology for a good thing, but I want like the real thing. I want real connection,
right?
And not just with other people, but like myself with God, and just like sitting in the space that I'm in and letting myself like be in a space where I don't have to fix the situation at hand. I don't have to come up with a solution. I don't have to, be doing something. I can just be.
Yeah, no, I think that is real. I think sometimes, well, we've been practicing, I have anyway. You've been doing it longer than me, maybe. But just the idea of sitting every day in a life rhythm of starting out with silence.
Mm-hmm.
We read. I'm reading a book called "Pray Like Monks, Live Like Fools" by Tyler Staton, and he just talks about the fact that, and him and many others, Dallas Willard, John Mark Comer. There's so many. A lot of Catholic writers talk about solitude and silence as a rhythm in our life. And as I've done that, I'm feeling the tethers. Rachel uses that word quite a bit, tethering. The tether of my phone is kind of losing its grip. Like I play a word game on it, but I try not to look at it all day long.
Yeah, like not have it on your person.
Right, like I don't have it now. It's
right.
We're actually using it to film, but I'll plug it up at night. I'll plug it in the other room sometime, or you and I went somewhere and I didn't take my phone, which is, you have this kind of momentary kind of quasi panic. Oh no, my phone.
Right.
That made me think, as Mom used to put you guys in the car in the 80s and 90s,
right,
and drive from here all the way to Jacksonville, Florida, which is an 11-hour trip with no phone.
Right.
So once she pulled out of the driveway, unless she stopped at a payphone somewhere, I had zero contact with her until she got there. Think about that.
I know. I remember that. That's how it was. Like,
we freak out if we go down. If we walk down the street.
But that's also hard too, because the world is so different. Like,
oh yeah,
it's not as safe as it used to be. So sadly, like,
yeah,
this has become a security blanket, not just because of its addictive, our addictive nature and the very fact that it was made to be addictive, but because our world is like crazy right now.
What do you mean our addictive nature? What was created to be addictive?
Like, we have humans, like, I feel like a lot of us have addictive personalities. Not everyone, but
what does that mean?
Just finding one thing that can become all-consuming, or that we idolize, that we just get fixated on, and we don't, whether that's a relationship, a relationship, or a habit. It's just, I feel like we have these addictive personalities.
Do you think that comes from I mean, yeah, where does that come from?
Well,
You think we're designed for it to be that way, or do you think that's happened over, and we've evolved to that?
I don't know. That's a good question.
You know what I mean?
But what I was saying too is that these are made like to be addictive,
Oh,
like
yeah.
psychological, like both. We're like it hits on our psychology. Like these phones were designed to like hit our weak points that
Wow.
constantly want us going deeper, and it is they get
Well,
these dope hits.
And the algorithms that are created from those. Did we read somewhere? Even the algorithms that are created can like read your mind.
Yeah.
And anticipate, like for example, on Amazon, it can anticipate what you're going to want.
Yeah.
And then put ads in your way.
Yeah. It's creepy.
Yeah.
It is really creepy.
So maybe in the original design and the original way we were even 200 years ago was not to be addictive.
What do you mean 200 years ago, our
Well, there
original
was
design?
But we weren't designed to be addictive people. We were designed to be creative people.
And passionate and have desires.
And relational and
maybe
community and all that.
Yeah. So is that maybe our addictive behaviors is it like our trauma responses are?
We're getting off in the weeds a little bit, but there are so many people when you ask somebody how they're doing, I don't want to make those declarative statements, but many people are lonely and isolated.
Yeah.
And when you have a phone like that, there's nothing that encourages you, and I'm being contextual here. When you're in that place, that phone does not encourage you necessarily to be less isolated. Even though you can look at an app that says be less isolated, a lot of times that doesn't help us be less isolated.
Mm.
It creates isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even loneliness.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's where I started catching myself in these loops of the doom scrolling, and it's just like it's weird because I see myself, and if I like go into my room and I lay a certain way on my bed, I know that I'm gonna like fall in that spot and then just be on this for way much longer than I want to be. And so I have to like really catch myself and be like, don't even think about getting in that position, of like.
So we're talking kind of about boredom, but I was looking at this too. I just got some notes here, but I got this. It says boredom is often perceived negatively, actually has benefits that can contribute to your personal growth if you will be intentional about considering them and then maybe building them into your life rhythms as a practice. It can enhance your creativity. Mm-hmm. There's a study that suggests that boredom can actually foster creativity by giving the mind space to wander.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It reminds me of just my job's in education, and then also, all the times I've babysat and nannied, but just make believe and pretend play. Yeah. Like when you let yourself be in those moments, even as an adult. And that's also important for adults to engage kids in that way, just not all the time being like, oh, go figure it out yourself. Like we have to model that to them as well, and show them that it's okay to make believe and to pretend, and what that does creativity for your creative process is pretty amazing.
The people that create movies and books, they're in that zone a lot because they're not watching TV. They're writing, they're thinking. This study also showed that when we are bored, our brains enter this default mode network, and I don't even know what that is, but it says in the study it showed that a default mode network is crucial for creative thinking.
That's interesting. Default mode network.
Yeah, and then periods of boredom can lead to a productivity boost. Like it even says, taking breaks and allowing yourself or oneself to feel bored can result in a more focused and efficient return to tasks. That may or not be, some people are like that by nature. My friend Mark Jordan, he's a natural thinker like that. He's very internal processor. So his whole process is way slower than mine, but it's more deliberate and it's more internal.
Here, so in neuroscience, the default mode network, or DMN, is a large-scale brain network primarily composed of the dorsal medial prefrontal cortex, posterior cingulate cortex, I can't even say that word, precuneus, and angular gyrus. It is best known for being active when a person is not focused on the outside world and the brain is at a wakeful rest, such as during daydreaming and mind wandering.
So read that whole thing, but only say default mode network. It enters it enters certain areas of the brain. Say something.
So
like that.
in neuroscience, the default mode network is best known for being active when a person is not focused on the outside world. Their brain is in a wakeful rest, such as like daydreaming or
so it's certain areas of the brain.
Mind wandering.
Yeah. Okay. Say it again. Sorry.
So is that what you're wanting me to say?
Yeah, because we said, okay, what is the default mode network? We don't know what that is, and that is saying what it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So in neuroscience, the default mode network is a large-scale brain network primarily composed of, I'm not going to say that crap. So the default mode network in neuroscience is best known for being active when a person is not focused on the outside world and the brain is at a wakeful rest. I like that.
Yeah.
Such as during daydreaming and mind wandering.
Wow. So
That's
that
cool.
can lead to productivity boost there. So taking breaks and allowing yourself to be bored, and we're looking at this study, can result in a more focused and efficient return to tasks. So having that, there's a 50-20 plan, I think, where you push for productivity for 50 minutes and you get up and walk around for 20 or take a break or whatever.
Yeah.
It also is, it can be a boredom. It's changing our mind about how we think about boredom is what we are trying to talk, what we're getting at.
Right.
Is we look at it as negative. It's like in my spiritual formation, I'm doing this thing where I feel like I'm at this wall, and the wall is always seen as a negative thing because it's in our way. When it's not, it's a place to grow. And this would be the same thing with boredom. What are ways we can change our mind about boredom? This study shows too that it can be a form of mindfulness, helping us reduce stress and anxiety. And being bored, which you talked about this as kids, it can give us an opportunity to slow down and recharge mentally.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have this frenetic pace all the time.
Right. Well, that's what we were talking about this too recently, of just how all our advancement in technology was to give us more time.
4-day work week is what we heard. These computers are going to help us. We'll be working 4 days a week. Woo!
Yeah.
Actually, we're working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day sometimes.
Right.
Because we're connected.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is an oxymoron because we're not connected really
Paradox,
at all.
yeah.
You know.
I like this one too. This was another one. Is boredom offers a chance for introspection. Helps individuals to connect to their inner thoughts and emotions. And this can lead to personal growth and self-awareness. The paradox is it's all about us, and we're so focused on ourselves, but not really at those fundamental mental and spiritual levels that actually are life-giving and creative.
Yeah.
It's mind-numbing.
Yeah. Well, so we all have the capability to sit in silence and to welcome our creativity. Yet what I see, like, on a generational level is like the vastness between those two places. Like for instance, like, and I don't know really what I'm trying to say, but like y'all's generation, maybe you're closer to be like the being able to get to what am I trying to say? Like, because technology has rewired our brain and literally makes us think differently for these little kids, it's almost like they're, what's the word I'm looking for? What's that word? Like the, not the chasm, but like the space. It's like the vastness, like for them to be able to get to see boredom as a positive thing.
Well, it is kind of a chasm.
Like they're this far away from it, where they have a lot more
perspective.
Like they have to journey a lot. It's going to take them a lot longer and a lot more to unpack, because their brains literally don't know how. Like they don't think like your brain does. Like little kids' brains, because they now, like for tech natives, they literally like can't think like you can think or that I can think in terms of just on a brain level of getting to that
they don't
place.
have to think.
Right.
They just, like I think I saw a 3-year-old with an iPad.
Right.
That knew how to navigate it better than my dad.
Oh, like 1-year-olds know how to.
It's like, so they don't have to think. I was another thing we were talking about is boredom can be a catalyst for curiosity if you'll let it be.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm bored. I don't have anything to do. Okay. What can I do? Stephen Pressfield's book, Do the Work, it talks about that kind of stuff.
What were you, and you had found some other ways, you touched on it earlier. What are some other phrases you can say instead of I'm bored?
Yeah, some of those were, I have some free time to explore something new. So even if the word comes into your head, I'm bored, you can go, yes, but I feel a bit unoccupied right now. Let me find something interesting to do. Mm-hmm. This is a great opportunity to think of creative ideas. I like this one. I have some downtime to relax and recharge. Mm-hmm. So sitting out in the backyard, listening to the birds, the dog's incessant barking, and some other things,
Yeah, how's that been going?
Not good. I'm in need of a fresh experience or perspective. My mind is wandering. Time to engage in a fun activity. Yeah. I play word games. Yeah. I like those. I could use this moment to discover something new. I have some space to think deeply or meditate. It's a perfect moment to catch up on a good book or a podcast. I was even thinking in families you could do that. How many, you guys feeling bored right now? Okay. I thought this was interesting. Jordan's, your brother, my son Jordan, has a website or a podcast called Totally Bored. Mm-hmm. And it's about board games, though.
Right.
But his whole concept has been you can take and replace this and electronic games, because he was a huge gamer, really into it.
He was addicted to it.
And he would tell you that, to going, what are some alternatives to that? Mm-hmm. And so the boredom part is, I'm going to get some board games. Mm-hmm. I'm finding that playing the board games is even challenging for me, because you have to actually think about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not a, reaction response things like when he used to play Call of Duty. Uh-huh. I could never play with him because he was so dexter. He'd run circles around me and I would be killed in the first 20 seconds.
Right, same.
But anyway.
Well, and so I guess that would be, how do we foster spaces for ourselves, and especially for the younger generation, because they don't know. Like, I mean, and I'm being, I'm generalizing here, but unless you're a parent who, one, can create the time and has the energy to foster these spaces of,
it's layers, right?
Creative play and all that stuff. Like, oftentimes you have both parents working. Like, it's easier just to give the kid the iPhone. And I know that, like, I talk to people, they're like, I never thought I'd be a one of those parents who would just like hand my kid the iPad or whatever, but then they do, and they become,
It's the snake eating its own tail, right? Because
Ouroboros.
the technology is that said we were going to work 4 days a week. We're not.
Right.
And so we're working 60-hour weeks and more sometimes. I mean, some of those young people at these tech companies, I won't name them, but you know who they are. They're paying them buttloads of money, but they're also working 80 hours a week.
Well, I think there was this some sort of study done where they're talking about, like, a lot of companies are going towards unlimited vacation. And it's great. You get the job and you're like, sweet, I can take as much vacation as I'd like off. And like, they're actually, these companies are having to like force their employees to actually take the vacation because they won't.
Right.
It's an option, yet they don't even take advantage of it. And so it's weird because it creates this like...
We had to use our vacation. I think somebody got that is you couldn't roll your vacation over. I had 5 weeks of vacation, and they insisted that we take it because they knew that people need to unplug.
So back to answering that question then of how do we create the spaces?
Well, one is awareness.
Yeah.
You can't do it if you don't know you need to.
Yeah.
So our goal in this conversation is, we're not saying how to do it necessarily or you should do it. We're saying, do you need to do it? Now you have some awareness about it. What does your life look like with regard to the positive aspects of being bored? So for us, for you and me, it's been, we haven't had time to be bored. We are now aware that boredom doesn't have to be a negative thing. How are we going to incorporate contemplative time, boredom, whatever you want to call it, into our life rhythms? And for me, it's silence, and I'm seeing the need more and more every day for solitude.
So I think it's like what I hear too is like how we have to model it ourselves. Like if we're gonna teach any of our future on how to do that, we actually have to show them the priority in creating space that allows you to just be and to you know, go outside and just think or whatever.
Jeremy Kubicek says you cannot give away what you don't possess. Okay, so modeling it. I have to learn it so I can model it. I can't do that if I'm not aware that I need to do it.
Right.
So now that if you're listening to this podcast and our conversation, you now have awareness. Oh, yeah, boredom is it real? Am I bored? You know, maybe you're already doing a really good job with this, and we can learn from you. And if somebody's listening to us talk, give us some alternatives to the boredom thing.
Yeah.
What else? So awareness, modeling it.
Just the change of perspective. Like I don't even, that word is not a part of my vocabulary. I think
boredom.
Yeah, it's just, but I know that I get in spaces where I could say in a positive way, like, oh yeah, I was totally bored in that moment, and I decided to,
But you also
do
are
X, Y, Z about it.
Yeah, but you're also a good example of someone who has really incorporated that concept or that principle into your life for a lot of years. You're in your mid-30s. For at least 10 to 12 years, you've been in a contemplative state, right? Or has it been less than that?
Yeah, almost 10 years. I mean, I think I really started, right before I left Denver, which was 2014, 15.
So you had a crisis of faith. You had an encounter with the Creator. You started you've always been a reader and a thinker anyway, but from what you've told me, when you moved up into the northeast, no, into the the northwest. Sorry, Washington State, northeast Pittsburgh. You started meditating and thinking and reading and practicing. I mean, one time you went on a 60-mile solo hike. You remember that. I remember you calling me, it was scary.
Yeah.
But you spent how many days out there?
7 days out there.
In solitude, in silence, unless you were talking to yourself or praying or whatever. We want to do a pilgrimage. We're in part of this order in the Anglican Church. We're becoming part of it. Order of the Mustard Seed. One of the aspects of that rhythm is pilgrimages. So there's the El Camino de Santiago in Spain, El Camino de Ignacio in Spain. They're all over the world. They're here.
Yeah, I mean, you can make
Scotland, Ireland.
You can make anything a pilgrimage.
Right.
I mean, that's something I try to do at least once a year, is go have that solo time, like a longer trip.
And that's focused boredom. And looking at it that way, it just us talking about it this last week has really got me thinking about how to embrace boredom and even change the idea around it. We did a little etymological kind of view of that, where that word comes from, and
which is what you want to go there.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I think I have it on chat.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really.
I sent it in a text to you, I think, didn't I?
I don't think so.
I thought I did.
I mean, it doesn't really. It has also been employed in a serious, state of being bored, from bore.
Yeah, it's a French word. Borer.
Well, this one's like bore to like drill through.
Oh no, yeah. Okay, we can, but the basic the etymology of that is it's a relatively new word.
So, in 1778, thing which causes ennui or annoyance by dullness. Earlier state of boredom, fit of listless disgust, of persons who cause boredom, usually said to be a figurative extension of bore on the notion of move forward slowly and persistently, as a boring tool does.
Yeah, that's not it.
Yeah.
Anyway, what we were just looking at that is I think it's cultural too. If you go to places like Italy, it used to be this way even when I was there in the 70s and all, is every afternoon they would take a siesta.
Yeah.
For like
2 or 3 hours.
Weird,
or something.
yeah. I mean, you'd go there and at 1 in the afternoon, all the shops would be closed, and then they'd come back at 4 and open back up. They built in that disconnectedness somehow. You know what I mean? They weren't in a hurry. Okay, yeah, we're gonna close for 3 hours because it's not all about money.
What do you mean built-in disconnectedness? Like their ability, the ability to disconnect from we're
gonna go take a nap.
Yeah.
We're not gonna try. It's not all about making money like it is here a lot of times.
Right.
It's all about the money and getting more.
It's just consumerism and materialism, and we're not able to separate ourselves from that, and so.
It's something exhausting about always having to win and always having to be productive
and be entertained. Like,
yeah.
But it's like, I think at the times, like especially like going outside, I think that's why I'm such a proponent of like we need to reconnect with nature. We need to be able to understand, like nature teaches us so much. Like nature is not in a hurry.
Right.
Everything is okay as it is out there. And so when we connect with that, we start to embody that. And it just, so many of my, like, some of my best memories and some of just the most fun I've had with friends and people have been outside, you know.
Well, you got you and some of your friends. It was you and Jordan, and was it Yasmin that created that nonprofit?
Me and Yaz.
Yas.
Yeah.
What was it?
It was called Create Play. I was back in Denver, and it was actually being able to create opportunities and like recreational opportunities for underprivileged youth. I mean, that's the sad thing, is like, it is a privilege, and I recognize that, like, to be able to go outside and have access to nature. Like, I think of inner city kids, you know, when I was in Denver taking the bus to work every day at 7 a.m, there'd be little kids on that bus.
Yeah.
They've never been out in the woods. Like, they've never, you know, they don't get the privilege to be able to do that, sadly.
Yeah, I remember this is a little aside, but I remember hearing one of the Pulitzer's family got into some weird stuff. I don't know I can't remember the details of what they were talking about, some sort of crime or some sort of chaos in their lives, and it all the woman that was talking said it all came down to them being bored.
Mm-hmm.
So they got off into this negative stuff because they were, quote, bored.
Yeah, it's like they say that with like little kids, like, y'all had us in like every sport, everything all the time, because if you're too bored, it can lead to whatever. But that's, again,
a negative connotation.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it can, for sure.
Awareness, we said awareness. Modeling it. What else? So practice. You can model it, but then building it as a practice.
Mm-hmm.
And a culture, even if the culture is your subculture within the culture, like our family, is building those rhythms and those practices into your daily life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
what else? What do you think?
Let me look. It's 52.
Yeah, I'm about there.
Yeah. How do you feel like it's going?
Well, I think okay. I mean, it's such a how would you say it? It's such a, I don't want to say revolutionary, because I don't think we are, but it's such a significant difference in the way we think about it. We might want to talk about it some more.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is something that popped up. Maybe we need to do some more research. Maybe we just need to talk about it, like we were talking with Jordan and Mom and some other people about it, and continue the conversation.
Yeah.
I just think it's you know, where I'm getting to is it's easy to talk about it and have a principle and have an idea and a concept. Who cares? How do we build this stuff into our lives so that we are?
Well, I think we are. I mean, I think we have. I mean, I think from how I said in the beginning, like, some of my earliest memories of, you know, dad advice from you was boredom is a choice, you know, and that's looking at it as are you going to choose, you know, is boredom going to free you or is it going to enslave you?
Or even going, now that I think about it, when I was giving you the advice, but I choose to be bored right now. My definition of boredom is this is an opportunity.
Opportunity, yeah. I like that. Seeing it as an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think too that the importance of this topic and is where we are right now in the world, and just we're on this cusp, and I feel like a lot of people are feeling it in spiritual settings and in our economy and our government. Like, we're at this place where, like, a lot of these really important aspects of, like, humanity are being threatened by this, you know, by something that, again, can be used for good, but we're seeing the ramifications of it being used in really negative ways, or we have too many choices. We have, you know, we have too much of a lot of things, and I feel like it threatens our humanity. It threatens our creativity, our imaginations. Like, the way that AI is going, like
Oh yeah.
it's taking away our, you know, our ability to imagine. And like that to me is like one of our like
Yeah.
the best gifts we have as humans, and like what sets us apart from all other beings is that we have a conscience that can, you know, invent and can, you look at everything around you and it's an idea that was a result of someone, for the most part,
Yeah.
being bored and inventing something that was literally like life-changing and revolutionary.
Well, yeah. I'm thinking of the word lazy as you're saying that. We look at that as negative too. What if it's not?
Mm-hmm.
What if laziness, well, a lot of our inventions come from people being lazy. AI, you don't have to do any research. You can go, hey, look this up and give me 5 points on it and a teaching outline. Bang. You know, it happens in 30 seconds.
Right.
Whereas boredom and laziness don't have to be negative things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have to study that, but yeah.
Yeah. Anyways. Well, any last words, Dad? Or like, you got a good question to leave us with?
Yeah, maybe is how will, when boredom shows up in your life today or this week, when boredom shows up in your life, if it does, how will you respond?
I like that.
When boredom shows up, what will your response be? Think about it now. I'm not being directed, but if you think about that now, when it does show up, then you can have a little more of a plan about what you'll do with that.
Yeah.
Use it as an opportunity.
Yeah. Awesome. Good chat, Pops.
Yep. All right, darling.
Okay.
With essentials, unity. With non-essentials, liberty. All others, charity.
Charity.